Greetings, salutations, and welcome, either back or for the first time. If you've never seen my face before, I'm Ruthie. I'm a cosplayer and a seamstress and a writer. And on this channel, I like to bring you along with me while I create cosplays, travel to conventions, and go on other little adventures. If you've watched any of my other videos, you may have noticed a slight trend where my hair changes in every single video. This one it's no exception. This is also my first video of 2026, so that's very exciting. And in this video, we are going to be creating my Barbie Rapunzel cosplay. I, like many other young women growing up in the early 2000s, watched a lot of Barbie movies, and this one was always one of my favorites. Rapunzel as a character and as a story just across the board has always really meant a lot to me. And it has always been one of my dreams to make one of her outfits. So today we are going to be making this outfit that she wears for about 3 seconds in her movie, except it's going to have a little bit of a twist. If you're anything like me and you like historical fashion more than a little bit, I like it a lot of it, you will be able to pick up on all of the Italian Renaissance motifs that are going on in this outfit. So I'm going to take that as inspiration and also just the Italian Renaissance period in terms of fashion. I'm gonna smush them together and make something that kind of gives us the best of both worlds. As always, this video is not a tutorial because in many ways I am very much a novice seamstress. I really don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. I kind of just cross my fingers and hope for the best, and usually it turns out okay. And when I sew, it involves a lot of just thinking on the fly, and sometimes it works out really well and sometimes it does not. If you want to use this video as a tutorial, if you kind of can manage to find a way to follow along and it helps you, then go for it. But we're learning together in these videos. I think that's all I have to say in terms of an intro. I'm ready to get started. Let's just jump right into it.
We started out this project with what is, what always will be, and what always has been my least favorite part of any sewing project, and that is cutting out the fabric. I used 2 different patterns for this cosplay, one for the inner dress and one for the top of the duster. I've also heard that fabric weights are a thing that people use while they're sewing, but I've never seen one in the wild or in any other build video, so if those exist, let me know, because, oh, there's my sister. I just use whatever is around, like books and candles and stuff. But if those exist, you guys let me know, because I'm genuinely curious. This pattern is the same one that I used for my Amalthea cosplay, and it confused the crap out of me when I first used it. I don't know if it's just me or if the pattern itself is weird, because it has the weird like square side for like volume in the skirt and then that panel that gets inserted. Maybe I'm just stupid, I don't know, but it really confused me initially. Now I've got it down. I've done it more than once, but that first time around, I had to sit and stare at it for like an hour to figure it out. The first order of business, as always, was attaching the main bits of the dress and doing French seams for the whole thing, because I get really anxious that my things are going to fray and come apart. Sometimes I will do a zigzag stitch and then French seam over it, because I'm not worried about it. I don't realistically think that that's something that's going to happen, but in my brain, I'm always worried about it. And here what I'm doing is I'm going in and adding a zigzag stitch along the armholes and the collar. These are high tension areas, but they're also very delicate on this very, very soft fabric. So I wanted to make sure these were as sturdy as possible. And here I'm just hand sewing some lace onto the collar because I'm nothing if not extra. I love things to be frilly and pretty and beautiful. I was also simultaneously watching One Piece Season 2 on Netflix with my brother, and it's really, really good. I love One Piece, I love the show, I love the manga, and the live action, chef's kiss. I love it. I could talk about this for hours. But I'm not going to, because that's not what this video is about. However, my sister and I have talked about starting a podcast this year, just literally for yapping, because we yap so much with each other. So if you guys want a podcast, I don't know, comment down below. I've talked about making a podcast for literally years now. I think this is the year, though. I think the big 2026, it's gonna happen. Now what I'm doing is very slowly and delicately sewing in the sleeves on this dress. Again, because the fabric is so delicate, I went in and hand sewed them into place first. I do this with all my sleeves. And then I go through with my machine to give them a very sturdy stitch. I like hand sewing the sleeves in first because it lets me put them in the exact spot I want them to be. And this probably just stems from not being very good at sewing sleeves, but I don't know, this method works for me. Hand sewing, then machine sewing. Now it's time for the second pattern. I just used it for the top of the duster, and again, I may be stupid. This one really confused me at first too, but I eventually figured it out. I cut 2 layers of this, the outer layer and the lining layer. It's just from the same fabric, and I love the shape of the seams on the back. That was what was confusing me initially, but we figured it out. I went in and I zigzag stitched everything because I don't have a serger, so I just used a zigzag stitch to keep everything secure. But then, after I did that, I just went and sewed them together. Now it's time to dye stuff. I had a bunch of lace and ribbons and things that I was using in this cosplay that obviously needed to match. And I did this dyeing over the course of a couple of days. I've just compiled them all together here in one sitting for you to watch. But ribbon, lace, all that beautiful stuff, everything Rapunzel needs to look fancy and beautiful. Oh, and the under layer of fabric for the duster too. That second layer of fabric was white, it was curtains, and I just dropped that into the dye bath as well. And now here I'm adding a decorative stitch to the edges of the outermost layer skirt of the duster. I've already attached the 3 pieces of it together. Now I'm just adding a nice little wavy stitch to the edge because it's the small details, that really make the cosplay for me special. Then it was time for one of my favorite parts of sewing, hand pleating. I love hand pleating. There's not a lot I can do well in terms of sewing, but by goodness, I can hand pleat some fabric. I really don't even measure the pleats. I just know how much length of fabric I need to have at the end, and then I just go ham. And now, glorious. It's like a fan. And these pleats on this fabric, boy, this was hefty. I got a little warm and started fanning myself, and it really worked. I gave these a little hand stitch as well, and then I went in on my machine to secure everything, and I bent a needle doing this. It was a little scary because there were some parts where the fabric got really, really thick, and this is a new machine, so I was still kind of learning it and figuring it out. I did 2 straight stitches because this is a heavy skirt. I wanted to make sure it would be secure. And then I did a zigzag stitch just to help prevent any fraying, which is a little silly considering the raw edges of this are going to be sandwiched inside the 2 layers of the top of the duster, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Then I sewed the layers down to the outside of the duster, and then I hand stitched the inner layer closed. Now, at this point in time when I was doing this, I did not plan on having that 3rd middle layer of skirt attached to the duster, so I sewed that in after, which is a shame because it covers these really, really nice invisible stitches that I'm doing. But I'm also glad I have that middle layer of fabric because I feel like it looks really fancy. It's a toss-up. There's good and there's bad, but these invisible stitches were really, really good, and I was very, very proud of how they turned out. And of course, we have to be able to close the duster. So I'm adding little clasps, and I add a button as well. Also, something I've noticed as I've gone back and re-looked at some of my videos, I always start the voiceovers sounding very serious, and then a couple minutes in, I don't know, I hit my stride or something. I get into my groove, and then I just start yapping. I don't know, maybe I just yearn to yap. Anyway, getting my Critical Role fix. I'm really enjoying Campaign 4, Critters Sound Off. I was personally nervous about how Campaign 4 was going to go with how different everything was going to be, but I've enjoyed it so much. Mighty 9 is always going to be my favorite campaign, but this one has really wormed its way into my heart. I am enjoying it so much. Then I started on the arm cuffs. I used a different fabric for the lining on this one because I made them to be reversible. So dark purple for the inner layer, light purple for the outer layer, and these seriously are just rectangles that I sewed together. Rectangles, sew them together, add the edges, which I use lace and dyed ribbon for. Easy peasy stuff. This is one of the simplest things I have ever made, and I love how they look. I also don't show it in this video, but I sew ribbons onto the shoulder cuffs and the top of those arm cuffs so that I can tie them together. I hadn't originally planned on doing that, but the fabric was so silky that it just kept slipping down, so those little shoulder ribbons helped keep them in place. The back of the dress laces up like a corset, so I am just sewing different tubings here to be the loops on the back of the dress for me to thread ribbon through. This is the point of the project where I really started not feeling well, and in hindsight I can tell because generally I don't drink hot coffee very often, ever. I usually prefer it iced, but I'm chugging this hot coffee down. And that should have been my first sign. I don't know how I didn't notice that initially. So some of the progress documentation is about to drop off a little bit, and that's why, because I was just feeling like crap for a week and a half. But I was also simultaneously sewing every day because I had to get this done in time for MTAC. This is the back of the dress here. I'm pinning the loops into place, and then I go in and I sew them down, and that is what the ribbon at the back of the dress will loop through to close it. And here I'm sewing ribbon onto the bottom of the dress, over the zigzag stitch I did to prevent fraying. Funny story, the night before the con, I decided the dress was too long, and so I cut like 3 inches of it off in a manic episode, and then I rehemmed it and sewed the lace back on, and it was intense. Over the course of an hour, I was like sitting at my sewing machine like freaking out, and most of my friends were there and can attest it was a little bit of a mess, but you know what, we got it done, and I wasn't tripping over myself all day, so that was great. Here I'm adding eyelets to my arm cuffs, and this is where you can see the inside with that decorative lace and beading, which I didn't document because, again, feeling like crap. Couldn't do anything other than the sewing. But then I decided the silver looked too modern, and I went in with some embroidery floss and stitched over it to make it kind of match overall a little bit better. And you know what? I think it was fabulous. And that was the last thing I did for this project, other than the manic late night hem fixing. So without further ado, I do think that we should pop over to the reveal.
You remind me of a story. It's about a girl whose painting saved her life. Once, long, long ago, there was a secret manor hidden deep in a dark forest. And even if you were brave enough to go into the forest, you couldn't see the manor. It was concealed behind a magic wall, which kept intruders out. And more importantly, kept a young girl hidden inside.
Welcome back. Let's wrap this project up. I probably sound like a broken record. I feel like I say the same things in every single video, but they're always true. This is one of my favorite things I've ever made, much like everything else on this channel. This project, much like everything else on this channel, has its flaws. I can look at it and see things that I would change if I could, or that I may in the future. but that doesn't overpower the amount of pride and joy I feel when I see it and when I see myself in it. And the camera truly doesn't do this justice. It doesn't pick up, like, really and truly how it moves and how it shines and picks up the light. And there are so many small details about it that I didn't get the chance to record while I was making it because I was sick. So it was just taking everything in me to get it done. Like the beading and the lace work on the arm cuffs and the shoulder cuffs and the gathers in the mid-layer skirt that I added for more volume and length to the duster, and just the braids in the wig and the way the wig moved. And that wig was a pain in my butt. I will tell you something. I've got a below average noggin, and that wig, it's over there staring at me menacingly, almost doesn't even fit. We made it work, but oh boy. Wearing this to MTAC was an absolute treat, because MTAC in itself is an absolute treat and the people are an absolute treat. But the amount of people that recognized this cosplay when I was not expecting them to was like a significant amount of people. I was expecting to get called Khaleesi all day, and I did once, but like dozens of people flipping out for Barbie Rapunzel. I may not have won an award for this cosplay, but getting recognized by people who have the same nostalgia for the movie and character as me, that was the real award. And also hanging out with my homies. MTAC truly is PookieCon. Most of the people that I know in the cosplay community are there. It's always so fun. MTAC is such a fantastic example of like close-knit cosplay community. I adore it. Thank you so much for watching this video if you've made it this far. Thank you for watching it even if it was only one click. If you liked it and you enjoy this kind of content and you want to see more in the future, you should subscribe. As the summer is coming up, I have a lot more cons I'm going to, a lot of projects I'm going to make now that I'm out of the horror that was the beginning of this year. And I will see you next time, alright? Bet you didn't know I was in my PJs, did ya? Haha, surprise. Wow. That was my little sister.
Well, if we only had more crime here, they wouldn't be able to close down the station.
Yes, but there's never any crime in Moomin Valley.
Unless we commit some, I guess.
What?
Let's go and fill Moomin Valley with crime. Come on!